Right now, let me introduce my co-host. He's a man that I feel quite certain could run for mayor of Wrigleyville today and be elected in a landslide. He came here in 1984, a beloved figure. Please welcome back to Chicago, the Red Baron, Rick Sutcliffe.
Middle of a windup, and he'd be able to change whatever he was going to throw. I just thought his intelligence was at a whole nother level.
There it goes! Cubs are the champion! The Cubs are the champion! The Cubs win!
The Cubs win, the Cubs win, the Cubs win. Rick Sutcliffe led these Cubbies to the 1984 National League East title. You see that sparkling record on the way to a Cy Young. 1987, the Roberto Clemente Man of the Year Award, a three-time All-Star. Rick Sutcliffe is with me now, big fella.
That's good to see you. Now, why didn't you make the walkthrough like I did?
Because
You're smarter.
I have far less hair, and if it falls on, it's going to look like I have even less. And you're doing well with that. Great to have you back here.
Oh, wow.
I know how much this place means to you,
Sure.
and if you could take us back in time to when you arrived from dreary old Cleveland and came here to Chicago and talk about how you were embraced and welcomed into this community.
Yeah, that's not the Cleveland we know today. That was the mistake on the lake kind of thing. And, you know, one of those things, you get traded, everything's in disarray. I rented an apartment downtown. Some friends would stop by from time to time, and probably the biggest memory I have is in September. After a ball game that I had pitched, I hung around in the clubhouse and worked out a little bit. I just wanted to go have a beer somewhere. I just wanted to hang out. And so they said, well, if you can't go out through the parking lot because there's a lot of fans, so go through the center field fence, which is just right behind us.
Right.
And there's a place called Murphy's Bleacher Bar, and just ask for Jim. And sure enough, I walked out, and I'm not kidding you. I came from Cleveland where there wasn't 1,000 people at the ballpark to watch a game. And the next thing I know, it was literally like an Elvis Presley or a Beatles kind of thing. The fans went crazy, and the next thing I know, I'm in a police car, and they escorted me out. The next day, Jim Murphy was waiting on me in a parking lot. He said, I'm sorry. He says, you guys are going on the road for a week. He said, give me one more chance.
Right.
So, Scott, we get back from the road trip. Murph's waiting on me. I come over. The second floor was like where they stored a lot of the liquor and kegs and things. He had moved it all out. As you see the stairs going up there now, he moved everything downstairs, and he made an apartment out of it. Well, why was that important? He says, anytime you're in town, as long as you have a Cub uniform on, this is yours. Well, we all know Wrigley, okay?
Right.
There were no skyboxes then. There were no lights. When a celebrity like Charles Barkley or Michael Jordan, and take a look at one of the celebrity
bartender.
That's it. Hey, bartender, Johnny Lee. Well, anyway, all of those celebrities, when they would come to town, they could go watch a couple of innings, but then they would be surrounded. Well, they'd have to leave. Well, they don't want to leave the ballpark. Well, what do I do? Well, you need to go up on the roof at Murphy's. Well, how do I get there? Well, you need a key. Who's got the key?
Sut.
I'm telling you, everybody. How did you get to know Bill Murray and Brooks and Dunn and all of these?
Right.
I had the key.
You still got the key.
I still have the keys, as a matter of fact.
Yes, he does. We got a chance to see it yesterday. They have hamburgers the size of manhole covers up there, which I appreciate you giving us a shot at that. Now, what to talk, obviously, in the next... Welcome back to the ESPN Classic Chicago Road Show, presented by Miller High Life. Hey, it's a beautiful shot of Wrigley Field, isn't it? Grand old ballpark, 90 years old, steeped in, among other things, innovation. That's right. First part to let fans keep foul balls, which is a good thing. First to have an organist. The first to build a permanent concession stand, and of course it was the last to install permanent lights. So that's something we're going to talk about later on.
Know a little bit about that.
Yes, you do. That's what it looks like. These folks, God love them. They're hardy people. They're out here with us, keeping us company. We've got some dry cleaning bills to sort out. It's going to be all right. Everything's going to be fine. I put on a Cub hat because, you know what? How about it? This is it. The rest of the show, this is what I'm wearing. And that's how it's going to go. But right now, we're very pleased to welcome in our next guest, a man who basically defined his position during the 80s and early 90s. An MVP. Please help us welcome Ryne Sandberg. Yeah, he's laughing. He's laughing.
such a calming, solid, inspirational impact player on a ball club.
The best offensive second baseman that I've seen. And a solid fielding second baseman, too.
Oh, what a play by Sandberg, and he gets them. Holy cow!
I am retiring knowing that I have truly lived my field of dreams right here at Wrigley Field. Thank you.
Among the accomplishments, 277 homers as a second baseman. He led the Cubs to a couple of NL East titles. 9 times the man won a Gold Glove. Ryne Sandberg
could have won one every year.
Well, there are those that would say that. Ryne, thanks so much for being with us here in the ring.
Thank you.
Did you see us out there at the speed pitch?
Yes, I did. I was looking for a bat when Sutcliffe was so on. I couldn't find one. I'd have stood in there. Take my chances.
How about that? Yeah, put me up against anybody in the world but Goose Gossage. Yeah, thanks a lot. I appreciate that, Scotty.
Tell us about when this fella came here. When he got here back in '84, what was it like? What kind of enthusiasm, what kind of infusion of talent did he bring to this club?
Come on, neighbor.
It was something. It was. I believe it was like early June. The team was going good. I believe we were still in second place at the time, but. You know, I faced him in spring training, knew that he was a veteran right-hander, could really put us over the top. So they brought over Sut and Ron Hasse, George Frazier. That deal right there put us over the top the rest of the year. This guy went out and won 16-1 after that.
I had a lot of help.
You guys got to be pretty good buddies, didn't you?
We were neighbors.
Right, and?
We were neighbors. Well, I was telling him earlier, we used to drive... Nobody's quieter than this guy here. I'm shocked that you're here, first of all. We'd drive to the ballpark, and I would I'd tell my wife before I left, I said, I'm not going to say a word to him until he says something to me. I'd change the channels. I'd see his foot tap to a song. I'd change the channel. We'd get all the way to the ballpark. He hadn't said anything. Just quiet, huh?
I was quiet. I really was. I was young at the time. You know, I was 24 years old in '84. Just a young player, probably youngest on the team at the time, but being surrounded by these older guys, I just had a good time with them. And,
I got to get even with you for one thing. You got to come clean on something. All right, I retired at the end of '94, and all of a sudden to begin '95 you decided to come out of retirement. And so we're back here at Wrigley Field, right? I had a bunch of buddies from high school that wanted to sit in the bleachers. And there we are, had the time of our life. ESPN, Start Sports Center off with 2 former Chicago Cubs returned to Wrigley. And they show you getting a couple of hits. And, Scotty, I'm out in the bleachers with, like, the biggest
You were well-oiled, I'm guessing.
beer you've ever seen.
Lovely farmer.
How about it?
Look at
that out.
I'm doing fine until then. And all of a sudden, you had to do something, and then I get nailed for it.
Well, I'll tell you what, you know, I don't remember what really happened there, but, you know, we had a good time. We had a good time there, and I've been out in the bleachers myself on occasions, and there's nothing like it out here at Wrigley Field in the bleachers.
No doubt. Well, we talked a little bit about 1984, and it was certainly a special time because with the help of Ryne Sandberg, with the help of the man sitting next to me, 39 years of mediocrity was washed away. Dallas Green, the architect, made a little trade that brought over Ryne Sandberg and others in exchange for Ivan DeJesus, and basically it was a field of dreams right here in Chicago. Let's take a look back at what went on.
Sandberg, in the Cubs' last at-bat, has twice delivered a game-tying home run.
Green's trade for Sandberg overshadowed a series of other crucial moves that overhauled the Cubs. A week before the 1984 opener, he filled 2 glaring needs with another gift from the city of brotherly love: a leadoff hitter and a leader, speedy Bob Dernier and clutch-hitting Gary Matthews. A National League leading 19 times, the Sarge rallied his troops with a game-winning RBI.
Cubs winner! Cubs win!
95 more times Harry Carey screamed, "Cubs win." But it would never have happened without 2 more blockbuster trades. In late May, Bill Buckner was sent to Boston for Dennis Eckersley, who won 10 games in the Windy City as a starter. Then in mid-June, Green picked the pockets of the Indians by acquiring Rick Sutcliffe. Re-energized, the Red Baron won 16 of 17 games, a Cy Young Award, and a division title.
Cubs are the champions! The Cubs are the champions! Cubs win!
In the first 2 games of the NLCS played at Wrigley, the Cubs pounded the Padres with 24 hits and 17 runs. Even Sutcliffe joined in the hit parade.
High to right. Way back. This ball is gone. That ball is hit completely out of the stadium.
After 39 seasons of suffering, even Cubs fans could take solace that no National League team had come back from being down 2 games in a best-of-5 series.
And it was interesting while we were watching that, thanks to Dan Patrick, by the way. You got fired up and you said, my bat, my bat. That was what he used to hit it out of the...
Yeah, I asked him before I went up. I said, Ryne, can I have one of your bats? And he looked at me. Yeah, here, take this one.
You used it well.
Well, he's a front runner, you know. I was hot at the time, you know, possible MVP, you know, so he come up to me before the game. Can I use one of your game bats?
Look, I'm just curious, because 84 was such an incredible year. We've talked about it. It was magical around here. And then, obviously, in the end, it finished the way it did, not the way anybody wanted it to. How do you remember when you look back? With happy memories or with sad memories?
No, very happy. I mean, this city really came to life. I mean, Wrigley Field was just bananas the last 2 months of the season. Harry Carey was having a great time up in the booth with all our nicknames and calling the games. I mean, you know, we had more fans on the road at some of the road places than the home team that summer, and it was unreal.
Dodger Stadium, Ryne would come up and they would chant MVP, and Jody Davis would come at Dodger Stadium, where none of that ever happened before. And I'll never forget, Ryne, you and I have talked many times, when we walked out on the field in Pittsburgh for the clincher, that sign that said 39 years of suffering are enough. And you know what? We got lucky.
You put an end to that. And Ryne, it's been wonderful to have you come by and spend a little time with us. We appreciate it. One of the greats of your time anytime.
Thank you.
Back again.
Ryne Sandberg, great
to see this big guy right here.
I bet it was. You guys can catch up here. We're gonna. I don't know if there's a curse on this team. They say there might be. There's a curse of the Bambino. There's also a curse, and there's a goat involved. Alex, if you could sort it out for us.
Scott, I get all the fun assignments out here. I really do. I'm with Sam and Bill Cianis. And, of course, here we have Billy, the Billy Goat. Billy, how you doing? Billy's not liking this rain either. But, Sam, I understand that it was 1945 when your uncle tried to take one of Billy's ancestors to the 1945 World Series against the Detroit Tigers, and they would not let him in. And thus, that is kind of how the curse started. Fill in the blanks for me.
Well, my uncle, he took the goat 1945, the World Series. He had 2 tickets, one for him, one for the goat. And one came over up here to Wrigley Field, then they let him in. And my uncle said, why don't you go upstairs, ask Mr. Wrigley. One of the defense national went up there, asked, I got the Billy Goat down with his goat, and he wants to get in the game. He says, no. Let the Billy Goat come in, but not the goat. He says the goat, it smells, who run and smell goats in there. So the usher guy come down and told my uncle took the goat, and both disappointed and went back to this place on Madison Street.
All right, Sam.
Later on.
And that's the start of it. And he wrote back and he said, who stinks now after the Cubs lost? And while we go to break here, we're going to try and kind of exercise the curse, okay? Scott? Actually, Scott, we're going to go to you, and we're going to work on getting the Billy Coat.
Do what you got to do. Do what you got to do. I mean, maybe the rain, maybe it could be a sign from above. Who's to say? Hey, we're going to come back with plenty more on the ESPN Classic Chicago Roadshow presented by Miller High Life. Hey, Greg Nettles is going to come by. So is Mr. Cobb, Bernie Banks. All these folks here getting ready for baseball, working up an appetite maybe. Maybe they'll head over to the Billy Goat Tavern. Maybe I'll see you late night at Wiener Circle. It's a place I visited from time to time. Do you know about the Wiener Circle? Bring your appetite and your worst language. Anyhow, we move on. Our next guest, he played 12 years all over baseball, stopped with the Yankees, but really it was all about the Chicago Cubs in his 12-year career, being right here in 84. Help us welcome back to the show Steve Trout. He was with us in a monsoon. It's drier now, Steve. Come on up and see us.
Steve did remind me a lot of a left-handed Mark Fidrich. You know, would talk to the ball. He's a very animated character, very fun to be around and fun to watch.
Steve Trout gets the side struck out.
4 teams, 12 years, Sox, Cubs, Yanks, Mariners. Led the Cubbies in starts in 84 and in ERA as well. Rick, you had a pretty good year that year as well. Won 2 games of the 84 NLCS. You know, they call them Rainbow from time to time.
Well, it's only appropriate with all the rain that we've had.
You know what? The rainbow, literally.
Yeah, it's going to come out.
You're here. The sun's out. Thank God for that.
We're going to play ball. Like that too.
Yeah, that's right.
A little dicey earlier. Hey, tell us about what's going on right now up in Calgary.
Yes, Jody Davis and I are coaching a team, the Calgary Outlaws, and it's a new CBL, Canadian. The ice box is taken care of, right? But it's a new league, Canadian Baseball League, that just started up. There's 8 teams throughout the eastern and western part of Canada, and we're tied for first place right now. So,
Rainbow, I want to take you back, though. This is a classic show. Talk to me about Dizzy Trout, your father. Tell me some of your favorite memories of him.
Well, Tommy Enrich, who's here from the Yankees, before he was told it was his last ball game with the Yankees, before he went to the war, the pitcher on the mound was my dad.
Oh, boy.
And he said, your dad served me fastballs that whole day. And he goes, I'll never say a bad thing about Dizzy Trout. But my dad and I pitched, we a lefty and a righty. And Dad was a very successful pitcher for the Tigers. He's in the Hall of Fame for Detroit. And I got a chance to see Joe DiMaggio. And I went up to Joe and I said, Joe, it's Steve Trout. Nice to see you. And he said, I knew your father, but then so did everybody else. So he was well respected in baseball.
We've had a chance to visit with a number of the '84 Cubs. Obviously, Sut had his memories of it, the Hawk, Sandberg as well. I'm curious, as you look back on that time, I asked Sandberg, I'll ask you the same thing. It didn't end the way you wanted, but it was just so much fun, it seemed, during the middle. Is that as magical a time as you had in the game?
Well, I think yesterday, the ball game yesterday probably summed up what 1984 was like in Wrigley Field. And it was the year that I think it really brought the fans into the ballpark, because prior to that, they were drawing okay, but 1984 brought the people into Wrigley Field, and they haven't stopped coming in since. So
I think, too, about what a great time in all of sports that was to be a part of Chicago. We had the fun in '84, and then the Bears did their thing in '85. And what was that basketball guy, Michael something?
Yeah, he showed up here a couple of times, too, at Wrigley Field as well.
As you look back, though, again, because it didn't end the way you would have hoped, I mean, is that something that always sticks with you, the fact that it seemed like something, the script didn't end the way the movie was written, if that makes any sense?
Of course it didn't. You know, and especially because in 1945, the last time the Cubs were in the World Series was against Detroit, and my father pitched against the Cubs and beat them here in Wrigley Field, so I was hoping to be able to go back to Detroit and,
we don't make
kind of
excuses
back.
for anything that happened, but you and I both know I was scheduled to pitch Game 4. You were going to come back in Game 5. We were supposed to have the home field advantage, but because we didn't have lights, that was taken away. But what a great series that was. It didn't end the way we wanted, but it could not have been more exciting.
Well, we've got a couple of pitchers from the '84 team, a righty and a lefty, and we thought maybe what we could do here is have some fun. There's so much trivia, so much history here.
I'm not throwing on the radar, guys.
No, you don't have to throw left-handed. You have to go on the rain. You have to do anything. You can sit right here.
I got tennis balls to knock Ronnie Woo down.
Yeah, you tried to hit him in the hat. And
now
you missed,
what are we
but we're not going to bring that. We're going to have a little trivia. I'm going to tell you if you calm down.
Okay.
A little trivia contest, okay? But now you guys are playing for contestants that the Chicago Cub fans here, so it's a big deal. Alex, tell us exactly why these guys should feel a lot of pressure right now.
Well, because they have 2 fans here who really want a prize, and whoever wins is going to get the prize. So I've got a Trout fan here, Yankee fan. Tell me a little bit about your name and where you're from.
My name's Alan Miller. I'm from Delray Beach, Florida. I'm visiting my son, who lives about 2 blocks from here.
All right, go Trout. Here we've got a Sutcliffe fan here. Tell me a little bit about your name, Cub fan, and where you're from.
I'm Chad O'Neill from Terre Haute, Indiana. So we drove quite a ways, came up here with a group tour, and we come up here every year for opening day, and big Cubs fan.
All right, you guys, we've got a whole cheering fan crowd behind us, too, so let's get it going, Scott.
Alex, you got it. All right, so you guys now know you have people their names are emblazoned. Your names. Here we go. Question number 1 for Steve Trout. What Pirate did you get to hit into a triple play in 1983?
Really?
I remember that.
No. Rick Roden. So you don't get that point. Your question, Rick.
Parker hit everything he lined.
Who said this about the Cubs? Everyone's entitled to a bad century. That'd be Jack Rickhouse. We're 0 for 0. Steve, your father's standout pitcher for the Tigers. How many career home runs did he hit?
20.
That is correct. We have 1 point. Rick Sutcliffe, how many career home runs did Steve Trout hit?
1.
0. Trout now leads. Which Cubs pitcher led the team in victories in the 80s? That's your question. In the 80s, who
Rick Sutcliffe.
That's correct. You've got 2 points. Rick has none. Cubs traded the White Sox to acquire Sammy Sosa and Ken Patterson in March. Who?
Harold Baines.
George Bell. Sut, you're waffling. You're floundering. Steve Trout, the last Cubs batting champion was who?
Andre Dawson.
Bill Buckner, 1980, hit 324.
Andre.
What's Dusty Baker's real name, Rick?
Johnny B.
Johnny B. Baker is correct, so it's 2-1.
You feel me coming?
Steve Trout, what was the franchise nickname between 1898 and 1902 of Chicago? Oh, franchise nickname.
Good luck.
It's the Orphans. That's the buzz. It's the Orphans. And finally, which former Cub holds the Major League record for the most RBI in a season?
Former Cub.
Yep.
Hack Wilson.
I heard it from the crowd. I have to disqualify you. I can't. We're running out of time. That was the Steve Trout is the trivia winner, so some guy, Alex, help us out.
Way to go, California.
Tell my guy to hang tight. I'll buy him a beer.
Steve Trout, the winner, 2-1. Alex, go ahead.
All right, here's what we've got, Scott, for this. We have an autographed copy by both Trout and Sutcliffe of this Chicago Cubs Monopoly game. Oh, no, there you go. And Chad, for you, a little big league up. All right, Scott.
Thank you, Steve.
Outstanding. Steve, Rick, great to be with you. Steve, so long. Rick, stay tight. We're coming back here from the ESPN Classic Chicago Road Show. Presented by Miller High Life. Baseball on the way. Clouds rolling in. Run for cover. Run for your lives. It looks like it's going to rain.
This ESPN Classic Chicago.